But anyway, so Karanja, I sent him to Germany. The Mercedes, because I was familiar with Mercedes. And being in India, all the lorry trucks had the Mercedes emblem on it. So they were manufacturing Mercedes-Benz trucks in India, and they were very durable. They were very old models, though, not the new models, old models from the 50s or 40s. They looked like from World War II, the way they looked, you know. They were very old models, but they had the Mercedes emblem. So I said, this is the truck I should bring, the van. So I sent Karander with the money, and he ordered them. Then when they were ready, I got the men ready to pick them up. We would fly to Germany and stay in Frankfurt Temple, where Hans Duda was. He had a big castle. So the 21 men, I had to bring all the supplies I could with me, like for fitting on the trucks, the speakers, the microphones. I mean, so we had so much. I had 110 pieces of luggage. It took up 9 cartfuls. The carts were 5 feet long on wheels, 9 of them. And we were able to get on the plane with all those. And it was a special flight. Each person $99 only. One way to London. And then we had to take a different flight to India. But we were, in those days, they didn't charge for baggage. Excuse me. This chair is not so comfortable. No, it's okay. So we flew all the way to Frankfurt. We got to Frankfurt, stayed in the temple, and then I went to the factory. But it was like wintertime. So I didn't show my dhotis. I wore a long coat. And they put me in the Sheraton Hotel. They paid for it for just 1 or 2 nights. And they gave me a tour of the Mercedes truck factory. It's in Bremen, Germany, where they make the trucks, not the cars. But the engines are the same engines used in the cars. They were diesel, the diesel engines. So there were 4 vans were short vans, and 2 vans were long vans, like 2 feet longer, you see. And they were stripped, except 1 or 2 of the vans had seats. The rest were stripped with a wooden floor. So we got hold of the vans, brought them to Frankfurt, filled them up with all our supplies, and then started driving. And I had a map that I had made from a company that showed me what roads to take to India. You see, going through all these countries, Austria. Yugoslavia was a communist country, but friendly to the West. It was anti-Soviet, anti-Russia. President Tito, he was communist, but he wasn't with the Russians. So we had to drive through Yugoslavia, and we had to drive through Iran. Iran was a great place to buy petrol, because it was only like 2 rupees a liter. It was so cheap. So I purposely brought 20 liter gas cans with me. So in Iran, I filled up all the gas cans. It was only 2 rupees a liter, because Iran makes gas. It makes petrol, or diesel. So it was very cheap, cheaper than any country in the world. So this way, I wouldn't have to buy expensive diesel on the way. We could just fill up the gas tanks. So, but it was winter time, you see. And so, we went through Turkey. There's Western Turkey and Eastern Turkey. Western Turkey is like European, very cosmopolitan, very modern. But Eastern Turkey is Islamic and very dangerous. The children were trained by their parents to throw rocks at the trucks to make them stop, so the truck drivers give them chocolate. So a lot of truck lorries had steel gates on their windows. So the rocks were thrown, wouldn't break the windows. I didn't have those. And they were always ready to throw them. But we would turn on our police lights. And then one of the devotees would make a siren. Like we were a police car on the microphone. So the kids would run away and not throw the rocks. So we used our booty. We used our brains to get to. Now crossing the borders in Iran, Afghanistan, I mean, there were like 200-300 lorries waiting to get across. I'm not gonna, and they were camped there for a week. Some of them were there for 7 days. I just went to the center of the line, and someone told me back in Germany, when you cross into these countries, you give the officers at the border whiskey and cigarettes made in America. You see? So I had to buy whiskey and cigarettes. And when I crossed the border, I went to the front of the line. And I had a picture of Guru Das and Indira Gandhi. And I told the men at the border, these vans are for flood relief. And Indira Gandhi, and I said, the person next to Indira Gandhi is me. But at night, we cross the borders at night because a lot of the officers are drunk. You know, they're supposed to check your van and check this paper, check that. I said, don't check. Here's some whiskey. I gave them $20 bottles worth of whiskey and cigarettes, cartons of cigarettes, Marlboro. You see? Oh, they said, oh, very good. You go, get out, go, they said. So I didn't have to wait, because then they would search us and then charge us tax and this and that. So this man was right. I did the right thing. They would just tell us, especially in Iran and Afghanistan. Afghanistan, there was even no electricity, you know, when we went across at night. And the people were like half asleep. We went at 12 o'clock midnight. They were like this. Oh, and then I said, here, some whiskey. You can drink, have fun. Let us go. They waved us on, you know. So, that was a big strain that we got relieved on. We didn't have to go through the customs and this and that. Otherwise, it would have been terrible. As we wanted to get to Mayapur for the festival, so we had to go fast. And in one country in Yugoslavia, not Yugoslavia, there was another country. This was a communist country, and every 10 miles there was a picture of Lenin with a saying, something from Lenin's book. It was a very communist country, and we couldn't stay. They wouldn't, because we were Americans. When we crossed the border, they gave us 3 days. And if we didn't cross the border on the other side in 3 days, they would put us in jail. And I had to pay $100 per person just to get the 3-day visa. That's $2,000 I had to pay just to cross this country. I can't remember the name. It wasn't Yugoslavia. It was some other name. Can't remember. Anyway, we stopped in the capital, and, you know, we wanted to stay overnight because it was cold, freezing cold. In fact, it was so cold that the diesel would freeze. You know, diesel has paraffin in it, wax. And when it reaches 0 degrees centigrade, it freezes. And it clogs your engine. And you're finished. And some of our engines were stuttering. So I asked the trucker, what do we do? And he showed me. I couldn't believe it. He opened the gas tank of the vehicle. He took a big cloth and wrapped it around and stuck it inside. And then he lit a fire. He said, you have to keep the gasoline hot, but not on fire. So you got to keep the gas tank hot. And you drive like that, and you'll have no problem. And we did it. And we didn't know these things. Krishna came and saved us. Who's going to light your gas tank on fire? And, it's freezing cold. Then we hit a blizzard. The snow was higher than me. And we were in the mountains in Iran. And the snow, I never saw such snow. There were so many trucks turned over. I counted 20 trucks turned over. The roads were so dangerous. And we didn't have any chains. You had to put chains. I think we did have chains, but we didn't know how to put them on. Anyway, there was we hit, a truck was going up a hill, and it couldn't catch the road. And it was hitting ice. And it slid back and jackknifed and blocked the road to just about 4 feet long. Just enough to squeeze our vans in. So we actually had to squeeze one van in the freezing. We didn't even have the proper clothes. And the heaters didn't work when it was freezing. The heaters stayed on 0. That means the engines were cold. They were on 0 because you heat your car through the engine. So if the engine is 0, there's no heat. There was ice in our trucks. That's how bad it was because it was so high. I mean, our lives were at stake in this endeavor, So all of a sudden, it's freezing cold. This 7-foot trucker gets out of his truck because all the trucks were lined up. We went to the front, and we started pushing the vans in that little space beyond the truck that jackknifed. It went backwards and blocked the road. So we got one truck in. This man, he says, in Eastern European, he says, move! He's like 7 feet tall. He had no shirt on. He had muscles like this. He was like Hanuman. I think Hanuman came to help us. And by himself, he pushed each truck through. He pushed each truck. I don't know why he helped us. Who sent him? He came on his own. He was Hanuman. Because he did it all by himself. We didn't have to do anything. Because we were struggling 4 or 5 minutes trying to push a truck in the snow. And the snow's still coming down. And we weren't dressed. Some of them were in dhotis. That's how it was. So after the man did this, I gave him a bottle of whiskey. And he said, oh, thank you. Very nice. You Americans, very nice. Number one, he said. He was so happy, And we were happy because we got through another problem. But then the worst problem came in Iran, in the mountains. A truck was coming up the hill. We were going down the hill. The space was very narrow and there was you could fall down 1,000 feet. That's how dangerous it was. There was no railing. But the snow was so much, 2 vehicles couldn't fit. Somebody had to stop and let the other pass. Well, the truck didn't stop and hit our van. And it was smashed in. Lucky nobody was hurt. And there was a big backup of traffic, everything. And I said, oh my God, we're stuck in the mountains of Iran. What are we going to do? Again, a government officer was in a car. And he got out, and I showed that we're Americans. Americans were involved in Iran with the Shah of Iran. They put him in charge of Iran. So Americans were allies with Iran before the revolution. Now you can't drive there. They'll cut your head off, ISIS, So, but at that time, it was the Shah of Iran. And I have to say, Iran, everybody spoke English wherever we went. I mean, it was great. The officers spoke English. Everybody spoke English. It was very educated. And people were very respectful. Although they were Islamic, they were very respectful towards Americans. We were like friends, like family. And he helped us. He made the trucker pay the damage for our vehicle. And the officer brought us to the next town. We had to pull our van ourselves with a chain. And he told the men to fix our van immediately. The government officer. And then he left. So we had to spend 2 or 3 days there. There was no, you know what we lived on? Israeli apples. Israeli oranges, excuse me. They were called Java oranges. They come from Jaffna. Because there was nothing we could eat there. Everything was meat. We got olives. We got plenty of dried olives. And the Shah of Iran had a food program. And he made rotis this size for 1 rupee. It was subsidized by the government so nobody would starve in the poor villages. So we lived on bread, olives, and butter, and oranges. And then to keep ourselves warm, they have steam bath houses. These big buildings where you sit in a steam room all day long. And then take a bath with cold water and then go in the steam room. Oh, we got our health back. We got our energy back just from the steam rooms. And from the subsidized bread and dried olives, those are healthy. I have lots of vitamins. And we got goat cheese, stuff like that. So we were there for about three days. Waiting for the van. Finally, it got finished. And then we left. And then we came to Afghanistan, which was really bad. Afghanistan was another disaster. We had disaster after disaster. And somehow Krishna came to our rescue. I don't know how. I don't know why. But because Prabhupada desired it. He wanted vans in India. He said, do it. When God says do it, like he let there be light, and there was light. Let there be creation. In Genesis, in the Bible, it says, God said, this is created by sound. And Prabhupada said, do it. So it has to happen if you have faith. And I had faith. So we get in Afghanistan. The problem in Afghanistan? There are no bridges. The roads go in the rivers. You have to drive in the rivers. Now, most of the rivers, during the summer season, there aren't any rivers, so the roads are clear. But we were in winter time. So there was water in the valleys. In the mountains, there was snow. In the valleys, there was water flowing into the road. But it was a concrete road. Not a black road, asphalt. It was made of cement, built by the United Nations. You see, they built it. And I think it's called United Nations Road 1 or something. It goes all the way to Vietnam at that time. You could drive all the way to Vietnam. through India, even. You see, the United Nations gave money to build it for transportation between countries in Asia. So how did we? So one time we came to a road. There was full of. There was 3 feet of water from the river because the snow melted. You know, we left in February. You know, it was March for the festival, so the snow is melting. It's still snowing, but it's a wet snow, and most of it in the valleys. From the mountains, it's coming down, the water, and flooding the valleys, you see. So the water is going into the roads, and there's like 100 cars waiting to cross. So I asked the man, what's happening? He said, well, we can't go across till the water goes down. Well, I'm not waiting for that. The man at the Mercedes-Benz, I asked him, can we drive in water? He said, yes. A Mercedes engine is sealed. Water cannot get into the engine. But you have to be careful. You can't go too high. When you see water coming in, then be careful, because the engine might, you know, the thing, there was no fan because it's diesel. It's cooled by diesel. So there is no fan belt. So he said you could drive into water, but you have to be careful and drive slow so the water doesn't come in. So I said, I'm driving across. But we had to be careful because when you drive in water, the water's moving fast and it can move, it can wash the car away. So you have to have someone walk across. It was only up to the knees. The water. So a little water came in the vans, not much though. You see. You know, because I had extra suspension, which I put on in India anyway. But anyway, we went across one by one. Each van went across, and people were like this. They couldn't imagine how an engine can go into water and not finish, because their engines would be finished. So again, there was a miracle, you know. So we were able to cross those waters. Then in Pakistan, the worst problem in Pakistan back in the 70s, early, you know, before the problems, you know, with the war, by 1975, there was no problems, you know. And Americans were treated very nicely because they were allies. So we got very good treatment in Pakistan. And we arrived in Peshawar, which is in the mountains or near a hill station. We stayed at the Sheraton Hotel. We parked our vehicle. It was safe because it was in a compound. That's another problem. In Turkey, I had a big problem there. In Turkey, you know, what I would do is the vehicle, when we filled up with diesel in the gas station, we would drive the 6 vans in and fill up. And the vans would leave. And then I would figure out the bill with the man, you know, with the gas station man. So in Turkey, we stopped in one station. The vans left. I was there alone. And the man told me 3 times the amount. I said, no. I'm not going to pay that. He said, no, you must pay. And they came out with some sticks. So I got on my radio. You see, I put secret radios in all the vans, which nobody knew about. So I called on my radio. They saw me get on the radio. They thought I was CIA. And I told the vans to come back. I have a problem. Because I had 21 men. And so the vans came back. They all got out with weapons, you know, some iron things. And then the men, they threw down their sticks. And they said, no, you pay. You give us a little. You know, they were scared, you know. So we had all these things that were, Maya was blocking us in every single aspect. We had so many problems, but Krishna came to our, it was so dangerous, you see, for those vans, you know. So that was in Turkey. So Afghanistan, of course, and then Pakistan. The hardest part in Pakistan was going through the Khyber Pass. The Khyber Pass was used by Alexander the Great when he came to India. So we went through the Khyber Pass. And the most wonderful time of the trip is when we came out of the Khyber Pass into the Indus Valley. So green and lush and beautiful. You know, because everything was dry and rocks. You go through Afghanistan, it's all desert. Nothing grows. That's such a impious country. There's no piety there. That's why nothing grows there. It's just clay, dirt. Even the mountains have nothing on them. You go into the Khyber Pass in Pakistan, the big mountain range that protects India. You see, that's where the Mughals came through. You see, they came through the Khyber Pass. You see, and the Pakistanis had mounted military facilities on the rocks so they could fire down into any opposing army that came on either side. So anyway, we come out of the Khyber Pass, we see the Indus Valley. That's why Prabhupada said there's no... So we came into the Indus Valley and we were so happy. We breathed in the warm air because we came out of the mountains. You know, we were cold for so long. You know, it took almost 20 days. We drove the vans in the worst time. The end of winter is the worst, they say. But we had to get for the Mayapur festival. So finally we got into India. We stopped in Amritsar. We stayed at a... not a dharamshala, but what do they call the Sikh places? Gurdwaras. We got to Calcutta. We spent just 2 days because we had to get all the vans cleaned and nice and washed, you see. So Prabhupada would see them. He was in Mayapur. I was in Mayapur. And so I was waiting for the vans to come. I was in total anxiety. When are they coming? When are they coming? Because I want Prabhupada to see his vans that little did I know he talked about in the 1940s, you see, and which he told me to do it, to fulfill his desire, you see. So finally, we're sitting in Prabhupada's room, you know, and the air is very pleasant, the windows and doors are open, nice breezes, and all of a sudden Prabhupada hears kirtan sound on loudspeakers, because I had loudspeakers on 4 of the vans, you see, with a police light. And the police, it was daytime, so you couldn't see the lights spinning around, blue lights. And so Prabhupada, he heard, he said, "What is that?" I said, "Prabhupada, those are your vans, you know." And he jumped up out of his seat on the floor, and he went on the porch part of the Lotus building and looked out and saw the vans coming across the horizon, the 6 vans being driven with the loudspeakers playing kirtan. And Prabhupada, he said, he went back and he got his shoes and he went down to greet the vans. And he looked at them and walked and touched them with his hand. That was his blessings. He was blessing the vans to do preaching work, you see. And then we opened the door, and the vans were sit a little high, you know. So we had to help him in the front seat. And then he said, "I will go with you." And we said, "Jai, Haribo," you know. Of course, it wouldn't be practical because the roads were very bad in those days. In fact, I put special tires on those vans. They were steel, made of steel belted tires. India didn't have that. They were made by a French company called Michelin tires. I think now they make in India. So they were steel belted, but the heat was so hot, the steel melted in the tires. I lost every tire. 6 vans times 4, 24 tires I had to replace. So it was very tough even in India to maintain the vehicles. And then the headlights, when they went out, at nighttime, I couldn't get a headlight for that model in India. I actually had to fly to Rome in Italy to get headlights for the vans. I spent just 2 days there. I got a bunch of headlights and brought them back, So the vehicles had it's called a carnet. It's a visa. And at the borders, they stamp your carnet. They don't just let you in. You have to have a visa, like a passport. It's a passport for the vehicle. And you get 6 months in India. But and then you have to drive them out. But I didn't want to drive them out. And neither did I want them to be together, because otherwise you're in violation of the taxes. You have to pay duty or something. So anyway, that's a whole long story about that. So I turned them into library party, and they went out separately. And then we had to turn them in. We just turned them into the government, because the library was finished. We got rid of all the books. We didn't get any more books. And this was at the time when Prabhupada left his body, almost the same time. And anyway, we were able to sell over 40,000 books in a year and a half. And the first year I gave 5 lakhs of rupees, of which half went to print the Hindi books and half went to the construction in Bombay. So we were very successful in our preaching work for distributing those books, lying in a warehouse for 5 years, because Prabhupada brought them with him in 1970, but we didn't hardly sell any because they were too expensive. And so we got rid of them and put them in all the libraries. So that's the Leela on the vans for all the devotees to, and the adventures. That's why I say my sannyas was an adventure, you see, because we went through so many things. And just as Prabhupada came across the ocean in the Jaladuta, we came across in vans, and we had to go through so many adventures. But we were saved in every circumstance by Prabhupada's mercy. So that's the end of that story. So you have any other